She said it between bites of cake. I wish you were never born. The sweetness in the air turned bitter in my mouth. Laughter rolled around the table like thunder, everyone amused except me. I stared at her, the mother who taught me to say thank you before every meal, now wishing I didn't exist. I set my fork down slow enough for her to notice. My pulse hammered, but my face stayed calm. The smile I gave her wasn't forgiveness, it was a warning. And when I finally spoke, just one line, even the ticking clock forgot how to move. My name is Catherine. I'm 32, a high school English teacher in Kansas City. On paper, my life is quiet, grading essays, packing leftovers for lunch, feeding the neighbor's cat when she's away. But in my family, quiet never meant peace. It meant invisible. I grew up in a house where love was a spotlight, and it never once turned my way. My mother's world revolved around my sisters, Jessica, the oldest, a born star who could do no wrong, and Amanda, the youngest, a creative spirit who needed extra care. I was the one in the middle, steady, predictable, too easy to overlook. When I was 10, I won a district essay contest. Mom looked up from polishing Jessica's debate trophy long enough to say, "That's nice, honey," then asked Amanda if she wanted ice cream. At 12, I taught myself piano. Dad called it a sweet hobby before turning back to watch Jessica practice her graduation speech. My small victories were footnotes in their bigger story. Every family photo proved it. Jessica in front, Amanda leaning on Mom and me, smiling just enough to fill the space beside Dad. If you looked closely, you could almost see the outline of someone fading. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself being the reliable one was enough. Birthdays, holidays, graduations. I was there early, cleaning dishes before the party ended, refilling glasses before anyone asked. I believed effort could earn affection. I was wrong. Our dinners were always loud, Mom's lasagna bubbling in the oven, Dad talking about the neighbors, Jessica discussing her clients, Amanda explaining her new project. I'd sit quietly nodding, offering the occasional, "That's wonderful," like punctuation to their success stories. When they laughed, I laughed too, because that's what you do when you're the family glue. You hold even when it hurts. The last few months had been no different. Jessica had just made senior partner at her law firm. Amanda was still painting in Mom's basement, but in our house that counted as following her passion. So when Mom called about hosting a celebratory dinner, I didn't hesitate. I baked a cake, my simple contribution to the family's perfect picture. I told myself this time would feel different. Maybe Mom would ask about my students or my new class project. Maybe she'd remember my favorite dessert wasn't chocolate but lemon. Hope has a cruel way of surviving even when it shouldn't. That night, everything looked picture perfect. The table set with polished silverware candles flickering against cream china, the scent of garlic and wine filling the room. I arrived early, of course, carrying a bakery box and wearing the same cardigan I'd worn to every family dinner. Mom smiled when she saw me, but it was the same polite smile you give a neighbor, not a daughter. "You made it." Good, we were just waiting on dessert. The evening unfolded like a movie I'd seen too many times. Dad toasting Jessica's big promotion, Amanda pulling up photos of her art on her phone, Mom asking for stories about courtrooms and clients. My moment never came. Every attempt to speak was smoothed over by another laugh, another anecdote that didn't include me. Still, I stayed quiet, kept smiling, and thought maybe silence was safety. The sound of their laughter filled the house echoes of every year I'd tried to belong. Then the plates were cleared, dessert was served, chocolate cake glossy under candlelight, just like always. And as Mom placed the first slice on my plate, she looked right at me, her voice soft and sharp all at once, the same voice that used to sing me lullabies. That's when she said it. You'd think, after all these years, nothing they said could surprise me. But somehow it still did. Maybe because deep down, I still hoped they'd see me differently just once. After Mom's words, the laughter kept echoing. Jessica snorted into her wine glass. Amanda slapped the table, wheezing like it was the best joke she'd ever heard. Dad just smiled that weak, familiar smile, the one that always meant, "Don't make this a scene." I looked around that table and saw every version of my life I'd never get. Jessica glowing with accomplishment. Amanda carefree and adored. Mom proud and centered in the warmth she created for everyone but me. And me the extra chair, the forgotten utensil, the one who never quite matched the picture frame. They said it was humor, that we were just teasing like families do. But in this family, jokes were weapons disguised as memories. Remember when we told you you were adopted? Amanda giggled, taking another sip. Oh, she cried for days, Mom added, laughing like it was still funny. You were such a sensitive kid, Jessica said, shaking her head. You took everything so seriously. They were right. I did take everything seriously because it always hurt. I tried to join in to not ruin the moment. Yeah, I said quietly. I remember. But my voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded like a ghost at her own funeral. Somewhere between the refilled glasses and another round of applause for Jessica's latest win, I realized the pattern. Every conversation circled back to them. Every success of mine disappeared before it landed. I told them one of my students had just won a national writing award, a kid I'd mentored for months. Mom nodded absently. That's nice, honey. Then she turned to Jessica. Didn't one of your clients get featured in Forbes? The air left my lungs. It wasn't rage, not yet, just that familiar weight of invisibility pressing down. I forced a smile and reached for my water, pretending I didn't notice how my story got lost in theirs. When Amanda mentioned her art again, Mom's eyes lit up. You've always been so gifted, sweetheart. Your father and I are so proud. Dad raised his glass. To our girls. Plural, but never equal. I sat there, the third name in a toast that didn't include me. I was done pretending it didn't sting. As the night went on, the walls seemed to close in. The flicker of the candles, the scrape of silverware, all of it felt louder, heavier. Their laughter blurred into static. I thought about all the times I'd swallowed words to keep the peace, how I'd mistaken silence for strength. And then for the first time, I asked myself a question I'd never dared to before. If I stopped showing up, would they even notice? The thought didn't come with bitterness. It came with clarity, like a window cracking open in a room that had been locked for too long. Mom reached for my hand, still laughing from some joke Amanda made. You know we love you, right, sweetheart? Her fingers were warm. Mine were cold. I didn't answer, because love shouldn't need reminding and belonging shouldn't feel like an obligation. The chocolate cake waited in the center of the table, untouched by me. And for the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't hungry anymore. The room was still glowing with warmth when it happened. Lasagna gone wine half empty, the smell of sugar and burnt wax floating through the air. Mom leaned forward, knife in hand, slicing through the cake with the kind of precision she saved for moments that mattered to her. She was humming something old from the radio when she said it again, lighter this time, like a punchline she wanted everyone to remember. I wish you were never born. Laughter followed like a reflex. Forks clinked. Jessica covered her mouth. Amanda's shoulders shook. It wasn't shock, it was amusement. I stared at the slice in front of me. Perfect layers, clean edges, glossy icing. The kind of dessert you're supposed to savor. But the sweetness turned metallic on my tongue. My hand tightened around the fork. My chest felt too small for the air I was breathing. I heard my father's voice faintly through the ringing in my ears. Come on, it's just a joke. A joke. That word had followed me my whole life. Every dismissal, every laugh at my expense had worn the same label. Just a joke. I looked at Mom, her lips pressed together in satisfaction, the room basking in her approval. I wondered if she even realized what she'd said, or if she did and just didn't care. My vision tunneled. The edges of the room softened, the center sharpened her face, the smile, the cake. I could feel my pulse in my fingers. The air buzzed around me like an electrical hum. Then something inside me stopped resisting. I placed my fork down. Slowly, deliberately. The small metallic tap sounded louder than laughter. It was the kind of sound that ends conversations. For a heartbeat, no one noticed. Then Amanda looked up, smirking. Oh, come on, Kath, don't tell me you're offended. You know Mom doesn't mean it. Jessica chimed in. Yeah, you're so sensitive sometimes. Dad chuckled weakly. My heart was racing, but my voice didn't shake. You're right, I said quietly. She doesn't mean it. I smiled, calm, controlled. That smile scared them more than shouting ever could. Mom blinked, the laughter dying at the edge of her lips. Well, that's good. I wouldn't want you to take it the wrong way. I didn't, I said. My tone was steady, almost gentle. I just finally heard it the way it was always meant. The silence spread fast, like a fuse lit under glass. I leaned back, watching her expression shift. For years, I'd waited for her to see me. And now, for the first time, she actually did, but not the version she expected. My pulse slowed. Everything inside me went quiet. I stood, picked up my bag from the chair. The leather strap felt firm in my hand, grounding me. I looked at them, my mother, my sisters, my father, and realized I didn't hate them. I just didn't belong here anymore. I think I'm done for tonight, I said softly. No one spoke. No one stopped me. The chair scraped the floor, creaked, the candles flickered. I walked out of that dining room, out of their laughter, out of the life where I'd spent 3 decades being invisible. And behind me, as the door clicked shut, the room finally sounded the way it always should have, dead, silent. I didn't cry that night. Not a single tear. I went home, kicked off my shoes, and sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the stillness of my apartment. The same walls that once felt small suddenly felt like freedom. No voices, no laughter that cut like glass, no need to shrink myself to fit inside their comfort. I remember the clock ticking. 10:43 p.m. That's when I made the promise. I wasn't going to fight for a seat at their table anymore. I was going to build my own. I opened my laptop, hands still trembling. New tab. Teaching job, Seattle. The idea came like oxygen, far enough away that Mom couldn't just drop by, but close enough that it still felt like the same sky. I filled out 3 applications that night. By morning, I'd sent 10. Every click was a door closing behind me. Days turned into weeks. Calls started coming in first from recruiters, then from my family. Mom's voice on voicemail. "Sweetheart, don't be dramatic. Call us back." Delete. Jessica's message. "You overreacted. We were joking." Delete. Amanda's text. "Mom's worried about you." Delete. For years, I'd been the one smoothing things over, calling back, making peace. But this time, silence was my answer. My absence was the conversation they never let me have. A month later, I accepted a position in Seattle. New school, new city, new start. The movers came on a Friday morning. As they packed the last box, I stood by the window, watching the autumn light pour in. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like background noise. I felt seen by myself. Seattle welcomed me with rain, the kind that smells like renewal. I found an apartment near the water, small but full of light. I bought a new desk, a cheap rug, and a plant I kept forgetting to water. Each object was mine, chosen, not inherited. At school, the first week was chaos in the best way. Kids with questions, laughter spilling down hallways, colleagues introducing themselves with warm smiles that didn't feel forced. My new principal, Mr. Reynolds, called me a steady light. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that. For the first time, I came home tired, but not empty. My students started trusting me. One of them even left a note on my desk. "You make words feel safe." I kept it folded in my wallet. Back in Kansas City, my absence grew louder. An old neighbor mentioned that Jessica and Amanda had stopped speaking. Thanksgiving plans were complicated. Without me mediating, they finally had to face each other. Without the glue, everything cracked. I didn't need to gloat. My revenge wasn't rage, it was peace. The kind of peace they'd never find sitting around that table. Every time my phone buzzed with an unknown number, I knew it was them. Sometimes I'd let it ring just to feel the power of choice. Silence had become my language. One evening, as rain tapped against the windows, I made tea, the same kind Mom used to brew at holidays. I took a sip, half expecting the bitterness of memory. Instead, it tasted warm, alive. My chest didn't tighten this time. I realized then that I hadn't disappeared. I'd finally appeared in my own life. And the irony, by wishing me gone, my mother gave me exactly what I needed, the freedom to exist without her permission. I closed my eyes, listening to the rain and the hum of the city below. No laughter, no noise. just peace and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that my silence had become their undoing. Years passed soft and steady like the rhythm of rain on my Seattle window. Sometimes I'd catch myself wondering if they still sat around that table, the same one where I disappeared. I imagined Mom slicing into another perfect cake, but no one laughing quite the same way. Silence has a way of haunting a room once it learns your name. They reached out less over time. First came the letters Mom's handwriting trembling across the page. We didn't mean it that way. Then the photos stopped arriving at Christmas. By the third year, the calls slowed to nothing but static. And yet, I wasn't angry anymore. I'd stopped keeping score the day I learned peace doesn't need an audience. My life had grown quietly full. The students I taught made me laugh. My coworkers became friends who saw me not what I could fix for them. And then there was David, a man I met in a bookstore on a rainy Tuesday. He didn't ask about my family. He asked about my favorite author. We talked for hours, and somewhere between coffee refills and paperbacks, I realized I was happy. When we married, it was a small ceremony at a park overlooking the water. No family drama, no pretense, just music, laughter, and a soft wind carrying away everything I used to chase. A few years later, when our daughter was born, I named her Hope. She'll never have to earn her place at any table. She'll know she belongs because I'll tell her over and over until she never doubts it. Sometimes, when the house is quiet and she's asleep, I think about that night. Mom's voice, the laughter, the silence that followed. That silence used to feel like a punishment. Now it feels like peace. The night my mother wished I'd never been born was the night I finally started living. If you've ever had to walk away to find peace, you already know silence isn't the absence of love. It's what happens when you finally love yourself enough to stop begging for noise. When people ask if I ever made peace with my family, I tell them this peace isn't something you wait for, it's something you build. I never went back to that dining room, but sometimes I still dream of it, the clink of silverware, the smell of garlic bread, the sound of my own heartbeat trying to stay quiet. In those dreams, I don't see their faces anymore, just the empty chairs and the silence that fills the room long after I've walked away. Seattle became home. My classroom, my refuge, my daughter, my proof that love can begin in the ruins of what came before. Every time she runs into my arms laughing, I think about that night, the one that was supposed to erase me, and I realize it didn't. It rewrote me, because sometimes the cruelest wish becomes the greatest gift. Mom wished I was never born, and in a way, she got her wish. The version of me they once knew, the one who begged to be seen, no longer exists. But the woman who replaced her. She was born that night over dessert. So, if you've ever been told you don't belong, that you're too much or not enough, listen to me. You can leave the table. You can build your own. And when you do, you'll find that silence doesn't mean loss. It means you finally have the space to hear your own voice. If this story found you tonight, drop your city in the comments and tell me, have you ever had to walk away from someone you love just to love yourself? Your story might be the one someone else needs to hear. And if you believe that peace can be its own kind of revenge, subscribe for more stories like this one.